Hello, hello. Welcome to my Drive from Work series. Obviously, I'm not driving from work, and obviously, I have a special guest with me here today. Richard, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Richard Noom, the lead designer of Second Chances and the design manager overall.
All right. So today we are going to be discussing the card I have on the screen, Symbiote, or sorry, Nesting Symbiote. And I've got to say that this is a pretty nice dilemma that you guys designed.
Thank you. I should bring up, because I have a list of where everything came from. Someone had asked me on one of the boards. Let's see. This is originally came from Project Jack, which is the 20th anniversary collection.
Oh, and that set was just random cards from the different series.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know what the original, card that they had in mind that they were mirroring. If I remember correctly, I think that's what they were doing that set. It was originally written as you have to have 5 personnel with different costs or everyone stopped. I could definitely see how that was cut fairly quickly. But we like the idea. There was, I guess, a thought for a while that there should be, I guess the best example would be like an in development for high cost people. And I never really quite dug into that because it's like, if you're paying all that high cost to get those guys out, I don't want to just blanket stop at, a bunch of them. But I like the idea of saying, look, if you're just going high cost guys, you're going to have a problem then too, because you've got, trying to remember who said it. It was either Nathan or Jeremy when I worked with them. But one of them had said that most decks should consist of bricks and mortar. Bricks are the high cost personnel and mortar are the low cost personnel that kind of fill in the gaps. And that always sort of stuck with my mind. And so, like, if we can promote a little bit of more even deck building with cost, I don't, you could look at most, your random deck and might be like, oh, I'm good. That's pretty much how I built this deck. But if you're trying to go weenies or high cost guys, you're going to have a little bit more of a problem with this one. So that's kind of where the design was focused.
Yeah, because I'm thinking if you sprinkle in a few artifact personnel or some of those freebies, but still 4 personnel with different costs is a pretty high bar to clear. And looking at those skills, I'm certain they'll be found on several personnel, but I can't really think of. I mean, there probably are a couple personnel that have those skills, and none just really come to mind immediately. And then you have the integrity trigger, which could be an issue for some decks.
We thought integrity was a good one. We actually had the integrity up a lot higher, but that was the playtesters didn't like that because it just basically focused all the attention on just the cost thing, which was easy enough to filter. But the skills were kind of selected based on what weenie decks have available. So we didn't want them to just sort of fly by with just the weenies coming through. So most weenie decks are going to have a problem with getting at least one of those. But yeah, that was kind of the idea. Was we did a lot of research trying to figure out what would be the right skills to make this difficult for the decks we wanted to make difficult for. And yeah, it's very creative list of skills, and I thought the creative actually came up with a really great story for it too. Which when I saw that, I was just like, oh, that's clever. That I hadn't even thought of that. So,
well, giving you a little behind the scenes inside baseball, when I was typing up the stories for the cards, most of them came together pretty quickly, except for this one. I had at least 1 page full of ideas for this card, covering all 5 series. There were so many directions that we could have gone with.
I had a feeling like this was the one. I do look through the cards when we're about to get it through creative, and I usually will pick out 1 or 2. I'm like, I'm very curious what they're going to come up with for this one, and you guys always deliver. So it's always exciting to see. But that was one of the ones that I was I'm sure there's something, but I'm going to be very curious to find out what it is that they land on.
Yeah, really the only time this card is bad for is a late mission attempt. Just because by then you'll probably be overcosted. But it's
Yeah.
good for those early attempts after you've weaned a few people out.
I think it'd be it's going to be a solid dilemma. You can build your deck around it. I think there's a lot of decks that probably already built around it. So, you know, it might not be an auto include. I think it's going to be a solid dilemma, but you can also build your your skill set with those skills in mind if you are afraid of it. So,
Right, so that pretty much takes care of nesting symbiote. There is a spoiler on Facebook. If you want to wait until release day, this is your chance to drop out. Warning, warning, warning. Okay, we're going to spoil Spock.
all right.
Let me bring him on the screen. This was a Facebook spoiler. It actually came out I think 1 day before the actual spoilers were revealed. But yeah, it's a new Spock, and he goes with the Klingon mission build.
Originally, we had it as Kirk, who with the subtitle Nixon, because I thought that was funny. But we kind of thought, Spock made more sense as sort of the one that was pushing the mission in the first place. And there's so many good Kirks out there. It's good to have, a little bit of leeway with your decks, and so you can play around with it. But the all Klingon, TOS deck type really hasn't popped, so we thought we'd give it another little push and see if this helps people out. And
Yeah, and getting out a good ship is always a good thing for a deck, especially one of the top 7 ship or one of the top 5 ships, arguably, in the entire affiliate, in the entire faction.
I'm with spoilers here too. I'm with Jack Crusher. That's one of my favorites. I like the retro design.
Yeah. Now, I've got to say, I do think Spock works a little better for this card than Kirk, just because Kirk would have probably been captain or matching commander of the Enterprise A, and that would have just made it a little too easy to get that combination out.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he's got the skills and Spock attributes. I will note that if you're on the Dojo Discord, Brian Sykes did get a pretty neat combo where it involves George Stocker, and the Enterprise from Where She Belongs.
Okay.
So that you get that out, you get Spock out, he gets out the Enterprise A. Enterprise A is cheap with all the Klingon missions. And then you have those downloads with Kirk. Add in Delta Pavanis and download some battle cards, and you've got a pretty good deck, but it is a bit dependent on a few key draws early on in the game.
Yeah. Couple moving parts there. I guess you could definitely start the chain with Stalker. You got to make sure that none of the other cards are in your hand, because you can't download from your hand. So that can disrupt it. But even if the chain is disrupted, you can still play the stuff. It sounds like at least 3 turns to get everything out. That's not even including the maneuvers. Plus, you'd need the captain on the bridge to get Kirk, or not. Thinking of the wrong one. But how would you like to trip your Romulus if you wanted to get him easier? It's definitely a download chain, just not I think there's a lot of moving parts. I welcome people to make that deck, see if it works.
Yeah, well, for my money, I'm looking at this card, Bajoran Sector. As long as your non-headquarter missions are Dominion missions. And taking a look at the list, when you look at Federation Dominion, you've got a pretty good Federation Dominion Klingon. It's not as limiting as you think it is. It's not a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, good card that can make a lot of decks. And that's kind of a running theme with a lot of the cards I've seen so far. Like there are cards that will enhance existing decks, and even a few new decks that can come out of it. Like Hawk with the triple HQ deck. All right. Anything else before we close out?
I don't have anything specifically to talk about, but I was excited to talk about the cart for today.
Yeah, well, if you have any questions, there is a designer Q&A thread. I'll try and link that in the video description. Other than that, we'll see everyone tomorrow. Take care, and super thanks to Richard New for joining me.